Hello and welcome to Inderes TV. Relais published their Q2 report last week, and now I'm in the studio with analyst Petri Gostowski to discuss this report. Hi, Petri.
Hi.
So if we start with the traditional, what were the highlights of Q3?
I would say the organic growth in the wholesale business. So they reached a really healthy growth rate, and given that the market environment is rather sluggish, it was a very, very good figure. Then overall, it's kind of, we take it granted that when you do M&A, that the revenue follows what you've acquired, but then the company's been very active on the M&A front, and I'm sure even though they don't have a very rough, integration process, there's a lot to manage when you do many acquisitions, and kind of like operating in a stable way, despite a lot happening around. It's always satisfying to see, even though you take it kind of granted, but overall, no surprises. So I guess that's what's a very good end result, given that there's a lot happening.
Right. Yeah, and with the market conditions and everything, surprise is always good.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the technical wholesale and product segment had organic growth that was strong at 7%, despite the subdued market. What factors do you attribute to this, and do you see these drivers as sustainable going forward?
Well, I think there's a lot to it. Probably one of the key reasons is the lightning market, or the seasonality of the lightning business. So I understood that the sales started a bit earlier than compared to last year, so that kind of makes a small fluctuation over the quarters. But nevertheless, that market seemed to be strong, if I'm referring correctly to the company's words. And then they have a very wide product portfolio, so you had probably many successes here and there in terms of availability and pricing and so on. So I think even though we look at one quarter, it's an end result of many things that I've been doing purely, and whatever, having the right product portfolio, having the right pricing, being active on the marketing and market front. So there's probably many things. I couldn't take one or two single factors that would really be something that would have really impacted this one quarter. But then if you look at the longer history of Relais, they've tended to surprise to the upward direction with the organic growth. So I mean, there's something to it that helps them kind of outpace the market, and I think it's a factor of many of these things that I just mentioned.
Yeah, and having said that, you could expect this to be continuing going forward as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not saying that they will definitely beat the market every single quarter over the time, but I would expect them to be able, or they have a good chance to outpace the market growth in the long term.
Right. And then in repair and maintenance, there was a slight organic decline, which came from the subdued market, I suppose. Does the company have any initiatives, or is there anything on the market that could improve the segment's organic growth in the future?
Well, if we look at the economy, I think it's starting to pick up in the Nordics, where Relais operates, and then obviously the more the vehicles drive, the more they need repair and maintenance. Yeah. So kind of you see there an outlook that would support the demand. Additionally, Relais has done some sort of organic investments they've changed the positioning of some shops in Sweden. So I'm sure there's a plan to be closer to the customers and therefore gain more business. And then they've done some new how you would call it, maybe marketing changes in when they've changed their names in the repair business or in the workshops in Sweden. So there's these kind of small minor things to refreshen the look and the shops in Sweden. But I think the biggest factor is obviously the economic outlook, and it looks that we're going towards the better now.
Yeah, and I guess also like in heavy transport, because with the market picking up and people buying more stuff, more transport is moving on the roads, and then they would need maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So in your analysis, you mentioned that there's no major or significant changes expected now in the upcoming strategy update under the new CEO. What's your thinking behind this? Why is this so?
Well, I think I guess we say at least here in Finland that if it's not broken, don't change it.
Right.
But yeah, so I think they've had a rather clear strategy in allocating capital to the vehicle aftermarket in the Nordics, and they still have a lot of headroom for that. I mean, there's targets in the Nordic which you can acquire if you if you come to the same conclusion with the seller. So yeah, but there's not really anything that would need to be changed. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I can look at it in a way that companies have strategies for a different time slot, and they tie their targets there, and that's just kind of like often it's the goal, so you look at where you've reached there, but here it's more of a like a milestone, and you can just continue the same road and same path.
Yeah, like you said, if it's working, why do any bigger changes? In the research, you also mentioned considered and selective acquisitions. What would this, in your opinion, include, and how active do you expect Relais to be on the M&A front, let's say within a year and a half?
Well, if you look at the history of Relais, they've acquired selective add-on acquisitions in the wholesale business. So it can be, expanding to new geographic areas or new product categories. And then after a few bigger acquisitions in the repair and maintenance business, they've done selective add-on acquisitions. So it's been maybe a few workshops here in Finland or Sweden. And then looking at the positioning currently in the markets in the Nordics where they operate in the repair and maintenance business, there's still workshops to acquire and to grow your geographical footprint. So I would expect these kind of acquisitions to be on the company's target. And given that they've been very active recently in the acquisition or doing acquisitions, so you might want to take some period where you are a bit slightly less active, get everything into place in the organization. They're not doing this kind of heavy integration that some other companies do. So the process of integrating or onboarding new businesses is not as demanding as it might be for some companies, but there's always a few things you need to take care of. So maybe a bit of a smaller or a slower pace going forward, but I definitely see some add-ons possible.
Yeah, so they would be still active, but maybe, like you said, take a bit of a breather and then.
Yeah, that's the right way to word it.
What in your opinion is the biggest risk to your investment case for Relais right now, and how would that maybe materialize? What could happen that would turn us more negative on the company, maybe?
Well, for any business, the success of capital allocation is very has a very big impact on an investor's return. If a company would distribute all their earnings as dividends, there would be a very small risk in terms of capital allocation.
Right.
But whereas Relais, the majority of the cash flows are going into new investments and mainly acquisitions. So the success in these capital allocation decisions is very key, and it will be impacting the investors' returns to a large extent. Relais has a good track record from these acquisitions, but you have to always evaluate them as they come, so one by one. So I think this is where the biggest risks. I'm not saying I'm worried about this. I mean, they have a good track record, like I said, but you can't still take granted, because we know in the grand scheme of things, acquisitions are not easy. I mean, we could say based on studies that half or even more of them do not succeed. So there's always risks related to them.
Yeah. So like a strong track record is something to look at in the sense that they have seemed to be knowing what they're doing.
Yes.
Of course, some misses might come up in the long run, and you never know. But
yeah, I think that's a characteristic of acquisitions that you can't really get rid of.
No.
Despite who is the acquirer.
Yeah. Quite often there are cases where something looks really good on paper, and then something goes wrong in the end. And,
Exactly.
yeah. And then finally, what about the valuation and recommendation right now?
We have an accumulate recommendation, and it's basically stemming from a rather low valuation. The way we look at it is what is the right valuation for Relais's current businesses, and then how they could create value through M&A, and how would you sort of value that in advance. And I think the current valuation is pretty neutral to the current Relais. We see, or probably even a bit at the lower end for the current business. So I think at current prices, it's a decent price to acquire the new businesses, and you're not paying anything for the future value creation, of which Relais has I think a very solid track record. So I see it as tempting to get into the long-term growth trajectory of Relais.
Okay, thank you very much, Petri. So Relais, an accumulate recommendation and attractive for long-term investors. You can read more at inderes.se.